Well, hello, and welcome back to another podcast episode with Brittney Bundles. You are listening to the Brittney Bundles podcast, where we empower people through entrepreneurship. And today I'd like to talk about transparency. I want to talk about transparency. When I initially came to social media for the purpose of business, I knew that I wanted to be transparent in my journey. I knew that I didn't want to sugarcoat or act as if everything in my journey toward success and fulfillment and, just finding out more so who I am and what I enjoy doing. I didn't want to paint the picture nor portray a narrative that everything was just going to be peachy and peaches and cream. Now, at the end of the day, I didn't know everything that I would get into. I didn't know all the business ventures that I would try, which business ventures would work, which ones wouldn't. Of course, I couldn't see into the future, but I did know that my end goal was to be able to use my God-given gifts to further my passion, fulfillment, and to also help others along my journey, as well as being able to walk in my purpose. I also wanted to be able to be a stay-at-home mom if I chose to, not because anyone necessarily gave me that position as far as, marrying into a relationship that would allow me to sit at home or anything like that. But I wanted to be able to have the flexibility and enough income doing what it is I wanted to do, allowing me to have more time with my family and ultimately, like I mentioned, more flexibility as to how I wanted to structure my days. So today I'm going to be sharing with you all why it's important to be transparent. I have been transparent along my journey. I've shared different ups and downs on my YouTube channel at Brittney Bundles, as well as on this podcast episode. I don't try to be anyone that I'm not. I don't try to hide anything from you all. Like I mentioned a minute ago, I believe that, it's best to share your journey. And the only way that you can truthfully share your journey is if you're going to be transparent, if you're going to be honest, if you're going to be who you are. And so I want to talk about that today. Not only is transparency the route that I decided to take with my business journey, it's also very important when you are looking at growing your business and also maintaining and gaining new customers and clients. And we're going to dive into why that is in just a moment. So if you are interested in today's podcast topic, be sure to share the episode. Share it on social media. You can share it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can send the episode via text message even. Or pull up the podcast episode while you're in the car with a family member or friend, and allow them to tune in and engage with what we're discussing. Not only does promoting and furthering the podcast help me, but it also helps you all in the aspect of learning new perspectives from me and other entrepreneurs that are on the show. And it also helps other businesses, those that have been on the show already, whether it be via interview or via sponsorships. It still helps get the word out about what they're doing. So help us with that if you can. So without further ado, we're going to get into the podcast topic, which is transparency, in just a moment. I'll be right back with you all. All right. So welcome everyone to today's topic. Again, we're talking about transparency and why it is important in business. So the first thing that I want to touch on is being authentic. Being authentic, as easy as it may sound, there are a lot of entrepreneurs that are struggling to do just that. And it may be because, they don't know necessarily how to. I'm myself, but when I'm at my business, I have to do this way, and I have to be like this. And to an extent, I don't necessarily talk to my customers and clients as I would a friend or my mom, but I'm still being authentic to who I am. And the reason that I find it most beneficial to be authentic is because it's just easier and simpler to be yourself. And not saying that I agree with taking the easy route or the simpler route, but I am saying that you have so many things to worry about in life. just in general, business-wise and also personal, that being yourself shouldn't be one of them that you have to worry about. Now, of course, we have people that use the excuse of, being rude or not being the best selves because they're saying, well, that's just me. I don't agree with that. I've mentioned in some other episodes on this podcast as well as on my YouTube channel that I don't agree with that analogy at all. However, the way that you think, the way that you are, the way that you communicate is valuable. And you don't necessarily have to change all of that, the fundamentals of who you are and your character, to fit inside of a box of what you think is acceptable for the industry that you're in. I remember going to my 9-to-5, and I was the only African-American in my department. I was the only African-American loan officer in that whole financial institution at that particular branch. And I remember we had different grading, it was like, what did they phrase it as or title as? Like quarterly reviews. And one of the stipulations that we were graded on during the quarterly reviews was appearance, and not just appearance, but also how we connected to our coworkers. And of course, my appearance was different, naturally. I was a different, race. So that's one difference right there. And not just that, but the way that I connected with some of my coworkers were, it was different than some other people. I was, again, the only one in my culture in that environment. And so the kind of person I am, I believe that there's beauty in difference. There's beauty in having people that don't necessarily come from the same background, who don't necessarily look alike, who don't necessarily talk alike. There's beauty in that because there is an opportunity to learn. If you constantly are around people that are quote unquote perfect, or constantly around people that are just like you, it's not really pushing you outside of your box or outside of what you consider normal. And so it a lot of times keeps us content with just how we are. There are some things that I look at differently because I no longer live up north, right? Because I'm outside of what my norm was. There are some things that I look at differently because I have experience working a 9-to-5 and also being an entrepreneur, because I'm not just solely experienced in working my 9-to-5. So the more people that you communicate with, the more experiences that you are open to and opportunities that you are open to, the better chance you have of actually growing to your fullest potential, in my opinion. But back to the initial topic of being authentic. I don't want anyone to feel like you have to be a certain way or have a certain image in order to be accepted with your business. That's one of the cool parts about being an entrepreneur. It's because you can decide how you're going to grade your business and yourself. You can decide how you're going to conduct yourself and how you're going to interact with your customers and clients. And you can be authentic to the process. When I first started my business, I was trying to be perfect. Not saying I was necessarily trying to be anyone else, but I wanted to do everything right. I wanted to please everybody. And the truth is, there's no perfect. Perfect doesn't exist in humans. And so a lot of times what we want to do is we want to grasp onto ideas that we have grasped from people or different things, society, and we try to drive in that lane. Well, this is how business owners should look. And this is how business owners should dress. And this is, but not realizing that when you do that, you're denying yourself the opportunity to run your business authentically. And a lot of times that's when you gravitate, that's when, most people gravitate towards you. And when you actually are able to feel your most confident because you're being exactly who you are. And confidence in itself is attractive. I don't care if you're referring to a personal scenario or a business scenario. Confidence in itself is attractive. So being authentic allows that confidence to flow more naturally because you're being exactly who you are. And it also allows people that are interested in you to gravitate closer to you. The next point that I have in regards to why transparency is important in business is because of true testimony and encouragement. Again, if I had the mindset of just trying to drive in perfectness, again, I'm going to try to be my best every single day. but I'm not going to sugarcoat it to the point where you're not able to learn from anything that I'm going through, because I want my life to be a testimony to those out there. I want us all to have some sense of, well, this is why I did this, and hopefully that helps someone else further their journey. What's the point of living if no one can learn from what you've done? So I have really looked at the benefit in testimony and also encouragement. There are a lot of people to this day that have started their businesses and have wrote me emails and text messages, some even phone calls, thanking me for sharing my story and letting me know that they started their journey based on one of the videos that I created, or based on an encouraging a story from my experience that I shared. I want people to know that average people can do extraordinary things. I consider all people average because none of us are supernatural beings, right? We're all people. And I think once we remember that, it kind of, hopefully it decreases some of that being arrogant and not being humble at all, because we're all people. We all make mistakes, whether I make more mistakes in this area than you, or you make more mistakes in that area than me. We all can learn something from each other. So there's no sense of me walking around acting as if I'm perfect, because everyone knows that there's nobody that's perfect. It's a waste of time. And then who's going to learn from someone that's always being quote unquote perfect? Now, I'm not saying you have to share every single hiccup or fall that you make, but I'm saying that if you are an entrepreneur, or, whatever industry that you're in, if you're wanting to teach and encourage others, it's best to share with them everything that you can, that you feel comfortable sharing, of course. Again, I'm not saying that you have to share private information that no one should know, or no one, that doesn't know you on a personal level should know. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying sometimes we get so hung up on our high horse that we don't want anyone to know that we've had areas of weaknesses, or that we struggled with marketing, or that we struggled with getting sales, or that we struggled with being able to come up with a good concept for our first business. Being transparent and letting people know that, yeah, you're human too, and yes, you struggled with this too, but you overcame, has so much more power than trying to act like something you're not. So another reason why it's important to be transparent in business is because of your testimony and encouragement that it will provide to others. The next point that I have is relatability. Relatability is huge in sales, and a lot of people downplay that, right? I get tons of questions every day, and a lot of the questions are, how do I get more sales? How can I make more money? Nothing wrong with that. But like I've mentioned on my YouTube channel, Brittney Bundles again, as well as on this platform, I like to go over the fundamentals. I'm not someone that's going to come out and say, hey, do step 1, 2, and 3, and you're going to become a millionaire overnight. I'm not going to say, hey, do step 1, 2, and 3. I guarantee you're going to get 5 sales by the end of next week. I'm not doing that. Now, there are some people that I work with during consultations, and some people that I work with through my mentor program. By the way, if you are interested in being mentored by me, if you do want access to my mentoring program, be sure to reach out to me on any of my social media platforms. I'll go over those platforms at the end of the podcast, but also email me. My email address is Btalks, TALKS, @yahoo.com. But people reach out and they're like, how can I get these sales, and how can I do this, and how can I do that? And I want to be completely transparent and honest. What works for one is not going to work for all. And that's why it's important to have that one-on-one interaction, because you can get general information all day long. But until it's actually customized and tweaked to fit your goal, and to fit your business, and to fit your personality, and to fit your workload, you're not going to get all the same results as the next person trying that. So I just wanted to put that out there. But being relatable, a lot of people purchase from people that they feel that they can relate to. How many people can relate to this? You may have started a series, and you're hooked to the series because someone in that series is relatable. Whether it's because they remind you of yourself, or whether it's because they feel like they could be your cousin, or maybe it's because you know someone that you work with that acts like a certain character. But relatability, a lot of times, is what connects people together. Now, again, I'm all for being different and loving differences, but the majority of people, I learned this in sales, will open up when they find that there's something that is similar, because a lot of people feel most comfortable when they're around people that are similar, or when they're around certain circumstances or environments that are similar. That's why, even when baby's born, a lot of times riding in the car can soothe them because it's a similar, familiar motion. Kind of mimics the motion of walking in your mother's womb. Or have you ever wondered why babies feel most comfortable around voices that they've heard while they were inside of their mother? It's that familiar, that similarity. So we as people, we naturally are born feeling close to things that are similar and familiar to us. And so if we can find that rapport, if we can find what makes us the same, if we can find a way to relate, a lot of times it helps us build relationships. And those relationships in return help us to secure more sales. So being relatable definitely can help entrepreneurs grow their business and grow their brand. And I'm sorry, there's not a lot of people that can relate to being perfect. There's just not. And so once I got that down pat, I just, I didn't necessarily stop caring about what other people feel or think. I don't think anyone necessarily ever just forgets 100% or just doesn't care to any regard how other people feel or think. And I think it's important to take people's feelings into consideration to an extent, but especially if you're dealing with people in customer service or sales or entrepreneurship, people's opinions are important. However, I'm not at the point where I allow people's opinions to dictate my behavior all the time. Now, again, if there's something that someone points out to me that I can change and, that I can definitely see, okay, wow, I can see how this could benefit me, or, hey, I don't really see it, but I'm willing to give it a try. And that's a different story. But as an entrepreneur, you are going to have people that are giving you different advice from every which way. And you ultimately have to decide what you want to do. But I am letting people know that you're human, treating people how you want to be treated, being transparent and honest while you're working with people, and also when you're sharing your experience with people, definitely goes a long way. The fourth tip that I have is humility, being humble, not looking down on others. Sometimes when we lose sight of being transparent, when we lose sight of being authentic, that's when pride comes, because we're feeling like we're superior now. No, I never experienced that. Nope, I would never know what it feels like to be broke. No, I would never know what it feels like to not own a business. What? No, I can't relate to that. No, she crazy. She didn't invest right. You couldn't catch me slipping if you wanted to. All of those thinking processes, those are statements that are spoken out of pride, not being humble. And so if we can remind ourselves of who we are, so being authentic, that piece again, also remind ourselves of some things that we struggled with and be willing to share those, again, sharing your testimony to help others. And while doing so, becoming more relatable to those out there that have experienced exactly what you have experienced, it helps us remain humble. How many times have you walked out of an establishment because you felt like whoever you were dealing with were rude and just arrogant? No one, I don't want to say no one, but a lot of people choose not to do business or interact with people that are arrogant. So remain humble, because again, whether you're excelling in this area, there's another area that you could do much better in. Whether I'm excelling in this area, there's a lot of other areas that I may not be doing so well in. So be humble and allow your transparency to also be a reminder to yourself of what you've gone through. And hopefully that will give you patience and understanding when working with others. Now, the last point that I have before I wrap up here is being transparent individualizes you and differentiates your company from others. A lot of people ask me, hey, what can I do to make my company different from other companies? Which is a great question. But being you already differentiates your company from other companies. It already differentiates and individualizes who you are and how you're going to interact with other people. Well, at least it should. That's if you are being authentic. So it should definitely do that. But if you're not allowing yourself to be transparent, it's going to be hard to be your authentic self. I made a video on my YouTube channel. It had to be a couple years at this point, and it was titled, "There's a million hair companies, but only one with your vision." There's many people out in this world, but there's only one you. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason for everything. And so we have to get back to understanding who we are, appreciating the gifts that God put uniquely inside of us, and learning how to be authentic, and also not being ashamed of what we've gone through. There are so many people that are ashamed of what they've gone through, not realizing that it makes you who you are. And not just that, but it shows extreme strength that you could go through so many things in business or in your personal life and still be here today to talk about it. So don't allow anyone to make you feel less than. I don't care if you had a business that didn't work. Many entrepreneurs have. That doesn't mean that your story isn't valuable. I don't care if you've tried to create or invent a product that someone else invented or beat you to. They got the patent before you. It's happened to a lot of people. There's still an opportunity for you. There's still room for you. I don't care if you feel like your industry is oversaturated. There's already enough people doing what you want to do. Because a lot of people feel like that. And the truth is, there's a lot of industries that are quote unquote oversaturated. But what does that have to do with you connecting to other people and with you getting out there and with you doing what you can do? There's only one you. There are a lot of people that are stuck because they're waiting for assistance from someone, and that someone happens to be you. While you're doubting yourself, there are people that are needing your encouragement. There are people that are needing your transparency. There are people that are needing your testimony. But we're too afraid to be transparent, and we're too afraid to be authentic. Why? Because perfect looks better? But does it? Does it really? Because failure isn't attractive? But what do you consider failure? What do you consider failure? Trying something and it not working? I don't consider that failure at all. Especially if you continue to try and you continue to push and you continue to fight and you find a way. That's an inspiration. That's a blessing. Again, that's a testimony. That's transparency. I thank you all for listening to this episode today. If you can hear my voice, I'm a little under the weather. So keep me in your prayers, please. Feeling a little better, but I am still under the weather. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, please don't hesitate to reach out. Make sure that you are following me on social media. I am on Instagram at Brittney_bundles. That is Brittney, BRITTNEY _bundles, BUNDLES. I'm on Twitter, Brittney Bundles, YouTube, Brittney Bundles, and Facebook, Brittney Bundles. Also, like I mentioned, feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to be the next guest, or if you'd like to have your business or products or services promoted. My email address is the letter B, Talks, TALKS, @yahoo.com. I want to thank you all for listening. Make sure you favorite the podcast if you choose to do so. Also, we love donations, so if you do want to donate or subscribe to sponsor an amount, feel free to do that. That is available on Anchor. And until next time, I'll talk to you all on the next podcast episode.